Well, congratulations once again on your matriculation into the prestigious Apartment Academy. We are the multifamily industry's only operations-focused podcast and your Institute of Higher NOI. I'm your host, the Dean of the Apartment Academy, Daniel Cunningham, and today's guest lecturer is Kesha Fisher, who is the Director of Real Estate Operations for Greystar. And Kesha has a very interesting role in our industry, which is she really sees development of new Greystar-owned properties from conception all the way through disposition. So if you've ever wanted to hear from somebody who really understands the life cycle of an asset and what's important to maximizing value, Kesha is a tremendous resource to have here on the Academy. Here she comes. Professor Fisher, welcome to the Apartment Academy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You work for this little tiny company called Greystar.
Yes. Just a small owner-operator. We oversee about 700,000 units in 17 different countries.
Yes. Maybe people have heard of you. What does it mean? You are Director of Real Estate Operations there. Can you tell us, what does that mean? It sounds highfalutin.
Absolutely. So I'm the Senior Director of Real Estate for Greystar. I oversee all of the Greystar-owned developments across California. So I like to tell people that I deal with all of our new developments from the cradle to the grave. So from the time that we have land, all the way through stabilization, through disposition. So I get to see all of the lovely stages of our developments.
Without disclosing anything that's not public, but about how many communities on average a year come out of the ground under the Greystar owned portfolio? So
this last year we had 45 starts, and that's across the country. So in all of the major core geographic areas.
So every year you essentially start a number of communities that would put most companies in the NMHC, top 100 probably.
Probably. We have done a lot of work to get to where we are today, and we have trust from our JV partners, our clients, and we're able to really make a difference and build quality housing for folks across the country. Indeed.
I've met some folks from that group, top quality, amazing, smart individuals doing good things. I like your role, and I think it is unique to have somebody at that scale. I mean, smaller developers get to do this. They develop their property and they usually see it soup to nuts. At scale, like at Greystar, it seems unusual to have somebody who is seeing the property when it's from dirt to planning to execution, staffing, lease up, all the way through execution. That's unusual, I think. Probably not that too many Keshas running around. Given that background and that experience, you would probably have some very interesting things to say about how you think about maximizing the value of every single project that comes through the pipeline. Part of that is amenity. Obviously, there's location, that kind of stuff. But when we think about operations and resident services, and let's talk today about the things you can move the needle there with respect to planning communities. What is important these days? What do you think's coming? Walk me through a little bit of what your thought process is when you think about how to, amenitize, use technology, et cetera. A new development comes to your door. Start us there.
Yeah, I think that it's looking at the submarket and the demographic for that submarket and what's needed, right? You'll look at things like, I'll use Northern California, for example, where we have a lot of technology. We have Google, Facebook, we have all of your major technology players. So we really put a lot of thought process into technology in those deals. We put a lot of thought process into co-working spaces in those deals because there's a hybrid work from home experience that's a little more heavy in Northern California than you may have in like a Southern California. So it's really dependent on where that property is, what those amenities are going to look like. There are standard amenities that everybody wants, right? Everybody wants a pool, everybody wants a fitness center, and everybody wants a dog park these days, which has become a little bit abnormal, right? And so we've got to make sure that we're taking care of the fur babies. We've got to make sure that we're taking care of the amenities, the core amenities that people are looking for. But then you look at kind of those fun amenities, game rooms. You're looking at things like, do I have a foosball room? Do I have simulated golf? You're looking at all of those things. And especially because I'm in new development, I'm always looking for something to make us stand apart. To make us stand apart from our competition, for us to really stand out, because everybody does the same thing, right? We're all just selling kitchen, bathrooms, and walls. But what's really going to make you stand apart are going to be your people and what people you place at that building, as well as the specialized amenities that you have that may cater to certain demographics.
Have we passed the days of the theater room? Have we figured out that people don't really like those, or is that still come up once in a while?
Yeah, you know what? I just saw a rooftop theater room that was pretty amazing, right? So your old school, like in the dungeon theater rooms with, movie seats, I think that those are a little outplayed. But if you can put something on the rooftop with a projector screen and make it sexy, I think that those are some amenities that people still really enjoy.
How do you make those decisions? Are there market surveys that say this kind of the market wants co-working space? How do you make those decisions?
We do resident surveys. So every other year, we work with some of our partners and we do resident surveys about what they're interested in, the amenities that they're interested in. And we work as a 4-person team. So when we have a building, we have our development department, we have our marketing, we have our operations, and we have our asset management team. So with all of our collective experience and all of our collective thoughts, we're able to come up with things that are specific to that demographic. We also look at our marketing teams. So with our marketing teams, when we're doing the branding, we're really looking at the demographics. We're digging really deep into the submarket. Who are going to be the people that move into this building? And that's how we really come up with how we're going to program those amenities.
And talk a little about the process timing wise, from the moment that Greystar secures a plot of land, and how long does it take typically go from sort of concept to approval and your first shovels in the ground?
It all depends on entitlements. We are in the lovely country of California, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer for our entitlements. But if we're already entitled, we look to put a shovel in the ground as soon as possible. So as we're looking at land and as we're closing on the land, we're already starting to put together our construction contracts with our subcontractors. We actually have an internal construction department, so they're already working on who they're going to utilize. So as soon as the land is closed, we look at trying to put shovels in the ground within 6 months.
And how has I was just sitting in on a panel the other day. They were talking about construction costs and the increase across the country, which definitely varies by region, but it was anywhere from, I think, 7% up to 15, 16% in some demographics in some markets. How has that affected the ability for Greystar to develop properties profitably?
I don't think that it has stopped us from developing, but it is had us become more creative, right? How do we staff the property? Do we do things in a kind of like a stair step, right? You don't need to hire everybody all at the same time. What marketing avenues work, what don't work, and really shifting and meeting the market where it is. So yes, it has become a bit more difficult because construction costs have increased. But I think that because I'm in a state like California, where we've also seen some good significant rent growth as well, we're able to offset some of that by rent growth. But you've got to give and you got to get, right? So you may have had absorptions in previous years at about 25 per month. You may have to bring those down to 22. Right. And so it's really looking at creative ways to make sure that you're still able to build, because we're in a housing crisis and we need housing. So we can't stop building, but it's how do you build? Do you now do modular housing? Do you look at things just really differently so that you're able to not have to lean on all of kind of your old practices?
So does the amenity list, do you see the amenity strategy shifting over the next couple of years towards maybe fewer amenities, or do you have to maintain these resident amenities no matter what in light of inflated construction costs?
You know what? Residents want what they want. And I can tell you that we have a very spoiled resident demographic now, right? I remember I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I remember when people were just happy with a washer and dryer, just have a washer and dryer inside of the unit, right? But it's not that anymore. It's really that they have become accustomed to having highly amenitized buildings. And so I think that as you decrease your amenities, you then increase your competition, being able to say, well, hey, we've got this and they don't. You know, you look at these smaller deals that may not have a pool. And I'm in California. So having a building without a pool is not great. And so you can increase your rents based on that. So I think that it's not that we're going to be decreasing the amenities, but I think that it's about how we're building. So again, looking at things like modular building, and do we build modular so that it takes less time to get our buildings up? Do you look at things like, okay, we have these amenities. Can we monetize some of those amenities? Can we have co-working spaces that we actually offer to people other than our residents? You can rent these co-working spaces, kind of like a WeWork, and understanding how to bring in more income. So I think that it just leans on operations to come up with creative ideas to increase your income so that you're able to overcome some of the increased construction pricing.
Well, playing off of your comment about resident expectations, how they have changed. COVID, the pandemic, certainly changed, I think, resident expectations on a number of fronts. One of them being, and I'd like to hear your perspective on maybe the arc of the things that have changed, but one of them for sure, most obvious, is how lease-ups happen. There was a day not that long ago, when I was on the operations side, and I've said this before, we used to say, people only lease, they're going to lease from you. You're the person, they're leasing from you. It's not the building, it's you. Like, create a relationship and you'll get a lease. I feel like maybe we disproved that a bit. Now there's virtual leasing that's available. Tell me from your perspective what the resident expectations are these days.
Well, residents are utilizing self-guided tours more and more. We're seeing about 30% of our prospects are preferring to go on self-guided tours. People don't have a lot of time, right? And so if I'm on my lunch break and I just want to run and see this apartment, I don't have to necessarily talk to a person in order to accomplish that. Now, I might talk to you after I've decided that this is going to be the place that I want to move, or if you're in my top 3, but I can come in and do a self-guided tour. I don't think that that's ever going to go away. Yes, we implemented them more and we refined them more during COVID, but I will tell you that we do have a large group of people who just want to go on self-guided tours. And we see that more and more, especially in the urban environments, not as much in our suburban environments. But I just think that understanding the self-guided tour paths and understanding what people's expectations are in regards to the self-guided tour are important. And also not just letting them see a model during the self-guided tour either. Include a vacant unit, because sometimes they want to see exactly what they're moving into.
And has that, well, actually, hold on, pause there for a moment. Self-guided tours, but letting them see more than a model implies you got to accommodate folks to be able to see different units on their own. How are you accomplishing that?
Well, we use technology. And so understanding technology, and, we use different vendors for our self-guided tours as well. And so it depends on if you're using a vendor or if you're doing kind of a do-it-yourself self-guided tour. So if you have a do-it-yourself self-guided tour, it's easy to call into a centralized leasing system, give them access to your lockbox, and you already have a model and, let's say, 2 vacants that you have on your self-guided tour route. So I think that it's just understanding that you want to hit all demographics, you want to hit all types of people, and some people want to see something with nothing in it. And so being able to give them the choice of what they want to see, you can see one or the other, or you can see both, I think is important. So it's understanding what your tools are. So are your tools just simply having a lockbox on the outside? They call you, give them access, you change that code every day so that there's not any liability there? Or do you use one of the companies that are out there that do self-guided tours through technology, where you utilize your cell phone to get in and out of some of the smart locks?
So what percent of your new properties coming out of the ground have, say, 100% access control smart locks?
So 100% of my developments are the sidewalk to sofa mentality, where we have the smart locks, smart thermostats, smart access control in and out of the building, smart intercom systems, so that it makes things very easy for the residents.
And do you expect, is there, on top of this access control system, are there other sort of resident self-serve amenities, services that are now coming to the fore?
Yeah, I think, doing things like, Resident Airbnb, right? That's been something that some of the companies have been starting in as well. Doing at, like, you have your co-working spaces, again, self-serving conference rooms where they can go in and actually do a Zoom call, a conference call. We've done green rooms as well, where people can do podcasts and do things from their homes as well. So it's really looking at things to make things easy for people to get in and out and to make things efficient. We're in a world where people want things immediate. They want immediate gratification. And so I think that we just have to continue to understand what that means in our industry and continue to meet the world where it is.
So others, aside from self-guided tours, access control systems, is there anything else that changed notably for with respect to resident services or the way residents are or the technology residents expect to be present? Anything else that has changed in the last couple of years that you consider table stakes now?
Building-wide Wi-Fi. I mean, I can't express that enough. The building-wide Wi-Fi is so imperative for the buildings today, right? If you move into a home, you have to wait. You make your appointment for someone to come in and set up your Wi-Fi. Who can live today without Wi-Fi? Your phone needs Wi-Fi, you need Wi-Fi to work. And so having someone that can come in and move in on the very day that they move in and get their keys to get into their unit, their Wi-Fi works. So I can drive into the community, my phone immediately picks up Wi-Fi. I don't have to keep logging in the common areas or logging in when I go inside of my apartment. It's an automatic experience. And so I think that Wi-Fi and that building-wide Wi-Fi, in conjunction with the work from home and the hybrid work from homes that most companies have right now, is extremely important.
Is that hard, by the way, like accommodating building-wide Wi-Fi, or is that with planning you just build it into the plans? It's easy.
You just build it into the plans and it's easy. It is a really easy process, and it's even easier for the residents. I mean, I can definitely tell you that the residents don't blink twice. They're like, oh, okay, I get Wi-Fi from you and you just add it to my bill. Awesome. And I get it the first day I move in, no problem. I don't even have to call anyone. So that's one less thing during a stressful move that I have to do.
Let's date this podcast by asking you what are the expected throughput speeds for Wi-Fi?
I mean, we're looking at, we try to do at least a 10. We try to at least keep it at a 10. We're like, okay, 10 or more, because we also realize that we have gamers. It's not just people working from home, but it's now people also streaming cable, right? People aren't buying cable anymore. They're streaming. They're doing Hulu. They're doing YouTube TV. They're doing all of those other things. Then you've got gamers. You've got people who are playing video games. You've got people actually homeschooling. So it's not just looking at people that are working from home, but it's looking at all of the different aspects of what's happening in people's homes. It's very different today than it has been in the last 2 to 3 years.
Have we covered everything that falls? I love your phrase, sofa to sidewalk. Have we covered anything that falls under that notion of sofa to sidewalk?
Yeah, I think, it's all of that. It's when you have all of that combined, right? And it's using a hub, just like you would use at your home, so that I just have one app. I know that when I first started in the technology, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this at my house and see how it works so that I can see how it works for residents. And I had to download like 7 apps. Right? I had to download my thermostat app. I had to download this app, that app. And so what we've done is we've worked with different companies to do a one app solution, to where we look at that one app. As a resident, I download one app, and that's what I use for everything. I use that to get into the access controls for the amenities. I use it to get into my front door. I use it to create virtual keys to if my mom is coming in town for the week so that she can get in as well. So it's all about just having that convenience. And again, it's like you said, it's that sidewalk to sofa experience where I never have to pull out a key. All I have to do is pull out my phone.
One thing that's discussed also in sort of shifting to resident self-serve, I mean, at least it's become a discussion topic of conversation, is whether or not residents are interested in doing some of their own maintenance as a matter of convenience, so they don't have to worry about a work order. Do you feel like that is something that's part of your sidewalk to sofa experience? Is that a trend that you think is going to take hold?
I don't. I think that this may work at some smaller communities, where you may not have folks that are on site, but we are still in the belief that maintenance is what keeps your tenants. We're still in the belief that the experience that your residents have is a make or break experience depending on the maintenance in their units. And for us, we still have maintenance teams and we still have maintenance staffs, and we want our asset to be taken care of. It's still our asset, right? We have renters there, but it's still my asset. So I want to make sure that things are done correctly. You may feel like you've been a plumber for 20 years, but have you been a plumber at a high rise, right? No. But you may feel like you can go and fix a pipe and then you break it and then you upset the resident below you because now you have a water leak that's going below you. You just don't necessarily have the experience to take care of our asset. So I think that right now in the industry, we're more comfortable ensuring that our assets are taken care of. And we also want our team members to have the ability to be able to move, right? To have those maintenance experiences. We have maintenance teams that move from being porters up to maintenance techs, up to assistant maintenance managers. We like that ability to be able to give people an ability to make a living. And so I think that maintenance is extremely important in apartments. I think that maintaining your asset is important. And I think putting that on a resident is probably taking that self-service guideline a little bit too far. I might be a little old school, right? I've been in the industry for a while, but my belief is that maintenance, taking care of our assets, is going to continue to be important.
Yeah, I'm with you. I understand the move towards centralization. We have a dearth of qualified service managers, property managers, like all of that is a problem. And so I understand the notion behind centralization, but your service managers, like ChatGPT is not going to replace them, right? ChatGPT is not going to like turn a wrench for you. So they will always, in my opinion, be necessary. And they're your front line of resident experience in my humble opinion. So yeah, I don't dig that either, but I understand why people are sort of desperate to find maybe a new solution. Has centralization yet changed the way you think about staffing properties, or are we still in the early stages of figuring that out?
I think that centralization is imperative, to be quite honest. I think that in order to create a positive resident experience, you've got to take some of the administrative burden off of your on-site staff. And so the monotonous things that they're doing, coding invoices, doing your final account statements, those things can be centralized. So, our thought process and how we're doing our buildings is definitely a centralized thought process. We're looking at utilizing a resource center to doing your normal ACM duties. We also created an area maintenance manager position where that gives an extra step to a service manager. So we have, techs at all of the buildings, but you may have one area maintenance manager that oversees all 4 or 5 of those buildings, looking at centralized leasing so that you can get your leasing information from a centralized source as well. So I do think that centralization is important, and I do think that it will continue to evolve in our industry. I think that it goes along with the thought process of it's costing more and more to run a building, whether that's your payroll, whether that's your marketing, whatever that looks like. So in those centralized services, you're also able to decrease some of those expenses by splitting them among multiple buildings instead of them having just isolated to one.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What else outside of smart home technology are there other services or technologies that you think are, again, table stakes for providing a top shelf kind of resident experience? Is there anything else on your list? Like, let's make sure we're doing this thing.
Yeah. Some of the things that we're doing is changing having so many leasing consultants to having lifestyle coordinators or, resident experience folks that are on site. Because what you realize is some of these deals, they remain stabilized between, let's say, 93 to 95% the majority of the time. So you don't necessarily need 3 leasing agents to make sure that you're backfilling your units. So having someone there that's really focused on the resident experience, focused on the maintenance and making sure that maintenance is done and checking in on maintenance work orders, looking at your reputation online, doing resident events. I think that that's the expectation that things are moving towards. Less of a concierge. We used to call it a concierge who would sit at the front, right? But that person didn't book your airline tickets. That person didn't do things that a normal concierge did. So we really moved towards, lifestyle folks and resident services coordinators, because that's where we are focused on. We're focused on the service that we're providing to our residents. That's why we're looking at centralization, so that those folks that we still have in the office are focused on our residents and providing a great resident experience. People are expecting that. They're not expecting kind of your walk in, get my keys, and I never see you again. Right? They're expecting resident events. They're expecting food trucks. They're expecting things to happen at their buildings. So we've got to create those experiences and make it worthwhile for people to live there.
Yeah, I've noted the rise of a couple technology companies really focused on facilitating, like book yoga classes and the resident group experience, facilitating that. All that sounds like that's important to you.
Yeah, it's extremely important. I mean, you're creating an experience. And listen, if I'm friends with my neighbor, I'm more likely to renew. And that's just a fact. That's a proven data point, that if I create friends and I create a community where I live, I'm more apt to renew my lease. And so creating those experiences are important. And listen, everybody can't afford a home. The affordability of apartments is difficult right now, let alone being able to purchase a home in some of these core geographic areas. So there are some people whose lifestyle will remain inside of apartments, right? You look at some of the data points where they're saying some of the younger folks aren't interested in owning homes. That used to be the American dream. That's not their American dream anymore. They're getting a dog, they're going to an apartment, and they want some experience, right? And so people are really focused on the experiences more than they are on anything else.
Give us a little glimpse into the future, Kesha. Tell us about what do you think in 5 years, maybe 10 years, what are some of the things that's going to become more important to owner and operators and residents in the coming years, do you think?
I think for operators, it's efficiency. It's efficiency of reporting, it's efficiency of what you're doing on site, and ensuring that you are not continuing to do manual tracking of things, right? Getting rid of all the Excel spreadsheet trackers, and really utilizing the technology that folks are creating and platforms where you can collect your data and actually do something with it. Understanding what that data looks like. What are people interested in? What are the amenities? One of the examples could be when we came out of COVID, people preferred outdoor amenities than indoor amenities. People are still utilizing those. So I think that as operators, we'll just continue to refine the efficiencies of operating, the consolidation, to your point, centralization, and seeing how that evolves, because I think that will continue to evolve and be something that we do. Now, for the residents, I think that it'll continue to be an experience focus. What do I feel like when I walk into my apartment building? What are the feelings that I get? What are the smells? Your apartments are going to be more like hotels than they are anything. It's what's the experience that it gives to me when I walk into my unit and when I walk into my building, more than it is, the transactional pieces. It's going to be, how do I feel and how does my apartment make me feel throughout my stay? And so that goes back to, how does maintenance make you feel when they're coming into your unit and fixing things, right? How do you feel about those resident events that are taking place on a monthly basis? And what kind of residents? Are they thoughtful resident events? Or are you kind of doing the same things over and over again? So I think that we will continue to move forward in more of a hospitality industry than we have been in the past, and more of a technology industry than we have been in the past as well.
That's a very interesting parallel. If you think about the hospitality industry, there is a very distinct, for example, Four Seasons experience. It is clear that the Four Seasons teams have been through training, they've been indoctrinated, and you feel it. Companies at Greystar's scale can afford, can have the resources to provide that kind of training. Smaller operators, I don't know how you do it. Speak just, if you can, just briefly, like how much training does it take to get a team member providing a level of service that you think would be a hospitality-like experience? Is that something they get trained once a year? Do you have to once a quarter, monthly? Are you talking with them about that experience? How do you achieve that?
Well, I think that one, they respect what you inspect. And so understanding that, it comes from the top down, and you can't just expect that they're going to know how to provide the service. We provide consistent training that is not proactive and not reactive. So any of our team members can go into Workday and they can utilize customer experience training and they can take it on demand. I think that it's very important for people not to have to sign up for a training that I have to wait 3 weeks to do, right? But being able to have training that's on demand. I think that even your smaller operators can afford to have an on-demand type of training. You don't necessarily have to call people in to do training all the time. You may do an in-person training once a year, and then you may do on-demand training all throughout the remainder of the year. But it's going to depend on your leaders and who you have leading those teams and what their expectations are and what they're doing when they're going out to the properties. So I think that it's a combination of leadership and training, not just training.
Yeah, I agree. Hard to do. One of the hardest things, I think, to do well. Let's wrap up by talking about the end of the life cycle of properties that are in your portfolio. So let's talk about the disposition process. Has technology changed the way that companies sell and acquire buildings on the back end? Is there a best practice if you hope to, if you're an operator and you hope to maximize the value of your assets on the way out? Are there best practices now that are bolstered by technology that are must-haves?
Yeah, I think that the due diligence process, which has been so painful in the past, right? It's been so manual, and some of the technology platforms have made that extremely easier, where you're able to actually upload all of the files into a Dropbox. You're able to take a look at those instead of having 10 team members go to the site, pull every file, look at every file, right? So, creating that paperless environment has been extremely helpful for due diligence. I also think that the technology of being able to just pass the torch. So if you are a paperless community or you are a paperless company, you're able to pass the information on way easier. We keep our contracts in Teams now. We don't have a contract binder. You keep your warranties in Teams. And so having things that are digital that you can just put your hands on has made that due diligence process so much easier and made that passing of the baton a lot easier as well. So when we have that list from those folks that may be purchasing our property, it's very easy for us to check off items on those lists because we can pull them from a database or we can pull them from online instead of having to find it, scan it, copy it, then send it over. So I think that understanding your technology platform throughout the time that you're actually operating a deal and not waiting until you're ready to sell. Because I remember back in the day, it would be like, okay, we're going to prepare to sell in a year. And so we've got to get all the files audited. We've got to get all the stuff done, right? And that's what you used to do compared to now where you always prepare for a sale. You're always prepared for a sale. So everything is paperless and everything is going through a pass the baton more than it is a manual process.
Yeah, I remember from my days at Aimco, the giant binders, right? The disposition binder.
Right?
Oh.
The disposition binder, right? And you would have each tab. And, I remember, I worked for Aimco. I remember at BRE, we always said the B and BRE is for binders. You would have to have a binder for this, a binder for that, and you have to make sure that they're always updated. And they would send you these little inserts. Make sure you put that's the update for the binder. We don't do that anymore. And I think that it has just made our industry so much more desirable even, right? Because the people that are coming out of college and the young folks that are coming into our industry, they're technology driven. They're utilizing their phones for everything, and that's what they want to do. So if you want to attract great talent, you've got to be part of this technology curve.
Yeah, we are, as an industry, notoriously on the laggard end of technology adoption. And, I continue to be stunned on the Leonardo 24/7 side of my world, when we run into clients who are still tracking contracts in paper or on Excel or faxing, incident reports, that sort of thing. But I do sense a wave of innovation is now starting to take hold, and the world will change for all of us. This has been very interesting, getting a tiny glimpse into your life, Kesha. And I'm a little bit jealous. I think you have one of the best kind of responsibilities roles in the industry to be able to see all of that and do all of that, get involved with the concept of a property, see it come to fruition, get it leased up, see it sold is I think an admirable position to be in. So thank you for coming on and and sharing some of your insights with us.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invite, and it has been a true pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you once again. Take care. Thank you for joining us at this week's episode of the Apartment Academy podcast. The Apartment Academy is a production of Leonardo 24/7, the industry's leader in multifamily operations and maintenance software. At Apartment Academy, we realize the hard work that goes into property management and the stress that comes along with it. Leonardo 24/7 takes the guesswork out of your team's day-to-day by providing customized daily guidance on tasks that need to be done, guaranteeing consistent operations across your entire portfolio. To learn more, visit www.leonardo247.com today.